So, Kevin, welcome back to the show. This is your second time here, and it's always an absolute pleasure to speak to you, my friend. How's things?
Both good and trying times, I guess you could say. I've had some interesting developments just recently. My book, Sailor's Anthology, as you know, it's been almost 20 years since that happened, and I've always, the first time I published it in the Library of Congress, it was just there to establish contemporaneous evidence and, to kind of get it off my chest. And then the other reason why I did publish it on Amazon in 2019 or 17 was when Commander Fravor came out, because interest started growing again and I needed copies of the book. And that was the best way to get copies fast. And again, I didn't ever promote it, as you probably know. But it's been almost 20 years, and I think I've been holding myself to way too high a standard, especially when I look around me and I see our politicians not behaving the way I do. So I've lost a lot of faith. And so I've said, F word, it. I'm going to promote my book. So right now I'm looking for a literary agent that will actually take me on and try to figure this out. Now, I've done a little bit of research and come to find out, because I wasn't trying to sell it, I never did copyright the book. And that's my bad. And I laugh at myself for that. However, at the front of the book, it says do not use without my permission. But if you go on the internet right now and do a search for by my ISBN, the code they use for tracking the book publishing, you will discover my books being sold right now in all kinds of different places. Everything, everywhere from $9.99 used all the way up to $63 used or brand new. So I have absolutely zero idea if 0 copies have sold or 1 million copies have sold. I have no idea. How would I have any idea? And that's my bad. I accept that. But at this point, I started to think about this, and given the whole story and the context around it, I'm going to turn that into lemonade. Instead of crying about it, I'm going to have the agent tell that story. And I think that will actually turn around into more sales than I could ever even imagined. What do you think?
That makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Because now I have the heartstring thing going for me, and it's legitimate. Absolutely legitimate.
Yeah, if you could just give us a short premise of the book, because you mentioned there you wrote it to be on record, but if you could just kind of give us an overview of the actual book, just so people are aware.
You bet, and it's quite an amazing story, actually, to be honest with you. When I first joined, it goes all the way back to when I joined the Navy, 1986. Young and upcoming dude, I kicked butt in A school, in radar school, honor graduate, number 1 out of 90 students. And because of that, and I worked really hard, I was older, and I wanted to choose where I went. I wanted to have some sort of say. So I got first choice. I went to USS Vincennes out of San Diego, CG-49, and immediately went on deployment. And this was in 1988, July 3rd. We're in the Gulf. We got intel saying, be careful. This was during the Iran-Iraq war. I've been in so many wars, I've forgotten how they all transpired over time. But anyway, we're in the Persian Gulf. They were getting ready to shut down the shipping lanes for oil. And apparently our helo got too close to international lines with the Iranians. Shots were fired. We fired back. We ended up sinking 9 ball hammers, went to general quarters. Right during that time, a lone aircraft came into our radar horizon. And at that point in time, I was real junior. I was standing a navigation watch, not even involved otherwise. I wasn't even on the heads. I wasn't even on comms. I couldn't hear what was going on the air side of combat, right? Other than yelling and stuff. It was on a different net. Anyway, I happened to be standing right behind Captain Rogers when he stood up and pickled off 2 missiles. And my mind was screaming this whole time, Kevin, that's a calm air. I almost stopped him. My mind was screaming because I'd been standing that watch the whole summer. But the problem was everyone else was too. And I was thinking, well, they had to know something I didn't. And if I say something now, we might get sunk like the USS Stark did a year before. 37 sailors got killed. Iranian F-14 Exocet missile hit them, 37. So I elected to keep my mouth shut. Right then, Captain Rogers stands up, screams in combat, "Make goddamn fucking sure that's not a comm-air." And I was like, oh, God, thank God he's thinking about it. But it was a comm-air. 296 people.
It's okay. Take your time, Kevin.
I know. I almost got out. One of my best friends was Iranian in college. I was so upset I didn't know what to do. You can see I still have PTSD over it.
Yeah.
I almost got out, but I said to myself, I said, Kevin, no. Make goddamn sure this never happens again. So somehow I was able to turn this passion I had for safety around, and I became the best of the best. And fast forward in a whole bunch of time, whole bunch of ships, whole bunch of deployments, whole bunch of warfare environments, went to Top Gun school, all that stuff, became highly known, very well-known trainer. And the reason why I brought up my first deployment, because my very last time on a ship, USS Princeton out of San Diego, I would already had orders to transfer. I was going to go to work for the admiral on the island, and I was going to either, if I made Master Chief, I was E8 at the time, Senior Chief, I was going to stay in. But for whatever reason, they chose only one person in the whole Navy, and it was one of my friends on the East Coast, and I immediately congratulated him. And I had a good job offer, so I decided to punch out. But no one would believe me, and that was another part of this. So when I tried to describe what had happened in post-exercise meetings and stuff like that, all anyone wanted to hear was UFO. This was in 04. Now, remember how it was like in 04, right? And I don't blame anyone, because if someone had been telling me that, I probably would have had the same reaction. I had been behind that radar for, at that point in time, 18 and a half years. I'd never seen any UFOs. I would have laughed at them too. But I got laughed at openly. There was cartoons running the papers and the whole damn 9 yards. So I said, okay, I'll get out. And so I went to DOD, and I won't drop the name or nothing. And guess what, Vinny? Same thing happened again. So I said, screw this, I'm done. So I punched out, decided I was going to go back to Sac State and got my master's degree, which I did. And I had some, it was too easy for me. So I sat down and I decided to write this in a fictionalized story. And I did that on purpose because I didn't want to name names and everything. So, but what I did do, this was in 2008, 2009. I said the word TIC TAC, and I named all the ships. And I described this whole thing from A to Z. So if you read my story now, there's no mistaking that I'm talking about the TIC TAC encounters in 04 with the Nimitz. It's the same damn story. But I put it in the Library of Congress for two reasons. One, to do something positive, get this off my chest so I could go on in life, right? Forget about it. And just in case this story ever came public, my book would be evidence that it really happened. And guess what, Vinny? That's exactly what happened. I went on in life. It really screwed me over. I ended up in the wilderness out here, Kalmiopsis Wilderness, hunting down gold at a family's mining claim. I didn't know anything about gold hunting or nothing. I grew up in the woods, but I was then out of my element. But I ended up finding a very huge deposit that now NASA itself is interested in. Yeah, this is a very synchronistic and serendipitous story, and there's parts of this that make me scratch my head, just the weird timing and stuff. It really does. Anyway, I come rolling out of the wilderness, flat broke, because nothing had taken off with the mine yet, of course, and I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I was staying in a 22-foot trailer on a friend's ranch, waiting for the second house on his property because I had an income, but it wasn't much, and I didn't have a home. I was homeless. or I should say houseless, but he ended up renting it to a legal marijuana grower, which is a common industry here. And I couldn't touch that, so I went to eat, and there was nothing. I was looking for a sale by owner, and there was nothing. So I ate, and I jumped back on the Craigslist at the time, and all of a sudden there was this house there. And the weird thing is, Vinny, I knew the house. I'd been there a lot of times as a kid growing up. Um, I won't go into the details of that. Anyway, I immediately contacted them. I was in escrow within like 4 days. $20,000 down, $70,000 total, and a note carried by the owner. And I moved in. It was way the hell out of town, but I was home. I had a place for my dog and I. So I started volunteering down at the golf course because it was really struggling here at the time. And a few years went by, right? And had just reopened the kitchen, and I was carrying out food, and we were watching the golf tournament, of course, and the CNN came in, and all of a sudden the TIC TAC video was playing.
That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. So I ran home. I don't know. I still remember how I got there. And I knew I had to speak. I was the only one on the planet that knew where evidence was in my book in the Library of Congress. So I called Gary Voorhees, and we decided we had to do something to defend Commander Fravor. He was out twisting in the wind all alone at that point. And I wasn't going to stand for that. I was the air controller. Okay. So we ended up forming an expedition. We went down to SoCal, rented a flat roof in Huntington Beach. We had New York University involved, quantum astrophysicists, movie producers. We had our team attorney there, Michael Hall, and we had some other people there helping us out. And you gotta remember, this was all on a wing and a prayer. Think of it would cost like $500,000 to pull this off. We'd have been clowned pretty good, right? Just going up there to look in the sky above Catalina. But guess what happened? Tic Tac showed up.
So wait, you saw this again? You saw the Tic Tac again?
They collected 600 hours of data this time. Yep. Radar data. We triangulated the positions on radar and visually. Exactly in the same spot they were in 2004.
Oh, was this with the UAPX team for A Tear in the Sky? Was it that one? Right.
No, I'm no longer affiliated with them. And I need to say that because of my friend Gary. He's still involved. I'm not. I decided to dismiss myself from them. No harm, no foul. But when 2004 happened, one of the weird things was Commander Fravor, he intercepted that object pretty close to the south end of Catalina. And as soon as he got in the merge plot, which is, we're looking on a 2D, two-dimensional display, and we're looking at symbols, not raw radar. So I can very quickly tell who's who in the zoo when I walk in and I look, right? As soon as he got in the merge plot, that object dropped straight down from 20,000 feet to 50 feet above the water in 0.78 seconds. No sonic boom. So he leaves the wingman up high. Fast Eagle 01, Commander Fravor's flight goes chasing it down. He gets down in the co-altitude, and this thing recognizes him. And you'll understand why in a second. He gets in a dogfight. And he jumps on the radio and says, oh my God, I'm engaged. And right then, this thing disappeared right in front of him. And you're not going to believe where it went. This is so hard to believe. I got to draw this for you. Pretend like this is the aircraft carrier, and the threat's coming from this direction at us, right? We set up pre-planned positions in the sky to protect us, and it's pre-briefed. Everyone knows where they're going. Well, Fast Eagle 01 had their pre-brief position, lat, long, and altitude. And that thing, whatever it was, went to his assigned cap station, Combat Air Patrol Station. Not close, precisely on it, lat, long, and altitude.
And how many people would have known that actual position?
The entire strike group that was watching.
Right, but nobody outside of the strike group.
No, just we fight like we train, or we train like we fight, versa versa, right? We fight like we train. So The only one that, was a secret location behind a crypto wall, if you will, right? So then I was thinking, that always stuck with me. What in that? What was that, And it's always ate on me. One of the reasons why I published the book. Anyway, fast forward and went to SoCal, did that mission, and I was standing there looking at the gamma wave reader. They detected 2 back-to-back gamma rays, by the way, which is the odds of doing that are more than 1,000,000 to 1. It's a very rare type of burst coming from outer space, right? Very specific signature and everything, but it happened back to back like that. And Matthew Zydalgas, he's a NYU, I think quantum physicist, if not astrophysicist. He walks over to me, if he's not both, and he says, "Kevin, I have a question for you." And I said, "What's going on, sir?" He said, "Do you think intention has anything to do with this?" I almost fell down with a heart attack because I was thinking, dude, that's exactly what I'm thinking. It was a message in 2004, and the fact they're here now is telling me that they know our intentions. Think about that. They know our intentions even before we know our intentions. That led me on a brand new journey, I have to tell you. Is it okay to keep rolling, or you have questions so far?
Please keep going. Please do.
So that really stumped me. So I drew it all the way back, and I started thinking about the Big Bang and the seeming intelligence of the universe, right? It seems to be intelligently designed. I mean, who would argue with that at this point, right? So I started thinking, well, what about the Big Bang? Was the Big Bang? I'm going to walk you through a chain of logic here, and it's like 4 different steps. So just let me go through it real quick. Was the Big Bang intentional or was it unintentional? Even the steady state, was it intentional or was it unintentional? Well, the truth is, I don't know. Therefore, I assign it 50-50. Okay, well, that's pretty dang powerful, right? Think there's a 50% chance the universe is intentional. Now, why in the hell hasn't anyone followed this line of logic before? Now, think about this. Let me follow the affirmative on this. Okay, it was intentional. What happened to the intender? Did the intender of the Big Bang survive the Big Bang, or did the intender of the Big Bang commit a cosmic suicide? Again, I don't know. So I'm going to apply 50-50, and I'm going to go with the affirmative. Yes, the intender of the Big Bang survived. It seems logical. There's a logic that applies here, but the name of it skips my mind, okay? Deductionist logic or some ridiculous name, right? So I'm thinking to myself, okay, the Big Bang was intentional. The intender, whatever that is, survived it. So the intention must be a real thing. Therefore, there is not 4 fundamental forces. We know there's gravity. We know there's strong nuclear. We know there's weak nuclear. We know there's electromagnetism. But what about the damn thing that created all those other 4 things? There's actually 5 fundamental forces, and one of them is called intention. Now, if I'm correct about this, this intention I'm talking about, you can actually engineer stuff from it. This is an actual physical force, and I'll show you why in a minute. Of course, I'll have to do it verbally, but my math is solid, right? I've turned this into math. So why in the hell no one's ever thought of this before? I've done research. I can't find this anywhere. The idea that intention is so what I did is I directly related it in terms of an equation, and I used AI to help me. I notice this podcast is an AI. I use AI to help me do the math because I'm not a mathematician or I don't do statistics. So what I did is I had the overarching concepts, and I let AI do the ugly work, right? So I just slowly but surely developed a framework, and essentially how it started. I have tens of derivative equations now, but the base equation is intention is equal to an intention factor plus a scaling factor plus a function of the fundamental forces. Now, when I say intention, I'm talking about the force of intention is equal to a specific intention and it's assigned from micro intent to macro intent on a scale from -1 to +1 through and including 0. You have 0 intention that there is no change in it wipes, there is no effect. Then it has a scaling. It has a scaling factor. What are we talking about here? Are we talking about amoeba? Are we talking about quantum physics? Are we talking about astrophysics? So it's able to quantify those things. And the function of the fundamental forces are what they are. So this is true math. So what I did then is I went back and I tried, okay, I got to make sure this is legitimate. So what I did is I integrated it with other known mathematical sets, like the Mandelbrot set, for example. And guess what, Vinny? It easily integrates with all other known math sets.
Wow. Okay. Wow.
Well, the immediate question, well, how come intention doesn't show itself? Which is a damn good question. Well, my answer is because it's not strong enough to reveal itself within the equation. I believe that intention exists in all things, but until and if, and I call it, I model it off the theorem. I call the model Bell-Drake because I fuse the Bell equation and the Drake equation into one. So when micro intentions, and I'll give you an example, the recent assassination attempt, Donald Trump, right? So there's a lot of people that don't like that character. I got my own feelings about him, right? And I'm not alone. But a lot of micro intentions, ill will against this dude, because that's what he shows, right? It reached a critical point, what I call T-crit, and it manifested into a macro intention. So, and I could give you other examples. And I've also went back and I've applied the same frameworks to all different kinds of things: politics, sports performance, chemistry, biology, astrophysics, quantum physics. It seems to work in everywhere, in any place I try it. Now, when I first shared this with some quantum physicists, you can imagine the reply was, "You're not even wrong," meaning that you're so wrong that you're not even wrong.
Oh, right.
I don't get that pushback anymore. Because I told them, I said, prove my math wrong. I said, given my priority that the universe is intentional, then prove my math wrong. And now I get crickets. Because they can't. They can't prove it wrong because I didn't do the math. AI framework did it based on my formulation. And why in the hell someone else didn't do this before me? It's another synchronicity. It's another serendipity that I have no explanation for. But it's true. It worked. It happened. And so all these things have occurred. So now I'm writing a second book. I'm calling it Redemption. And no, Tic Tac was about that specific things, and I threw some other short. And I wrote 4 short stories because I knew if I just put one in there, the intelligence services would probably spot it, if you will, because I was on radar even back then, so to speak. So I did my best to hide it, if you will. So I wrote some other short stories. Just some old washed drunk sailor, right? Publishing this stuff in Congress like everyone does, and just hit it there. And indeed, I've heard people in the know tell me it was one of the reasons why, not the only reason, of course, the government had to come out and admit that UAP was real because they could not explain the presence of my book in the Library of Congress without me having a time machine. And I don't have a time machine. I can barely afford my electric bill. Time machines are pretty expensive. So, does that bring us kind of up to date? And well, since that time, I might as well tell you, since I think they started in 2014, I've had 2 grand mal seizures, and I've had continuing petite mal seizures that I'm currently on medication for. And just since the spring, I'm finally able to drive again after years of not being able to drive. Think about that. Yeah. Because my neurologist said, Kevin, you're not having them. The medicine's working fine. Just stay in shape, stay on diet, keep working out. Don't drink, which I don't. Don't do illicit drugs, which I never have and won't. And it seems to be working. I'm okay now, physically.
Brilliant. That's fantastic.
It's all part of the story, and so it's all going into my new book. So I'm at this point looking for a literary agent. I don't want to go directly to a publisher because in my case, it's a little bit more complicated. I need an agent to help me figure out just how much damage I've done to myself by not copywriting it, which is my fault. I don't blame the people who took advantage of that. I don't intend to go after them, if that's what you're wondering. No, not my intention. I'm going to let that go. I don't blame them. I blame my damn self, huh?
I'm sure something good will come out of it. I'm sure, like you say, you find the right person, they'll be able to assist you in how to move forward with it. I'm sure that'll come to some kind of amicable resolution where you can start doing things in the right way. I think that's great. And the same with your second book. So, Kevin, listen, I'd like to talk to you about some names that you've mentioned recently, if it's okay with you.
Go for it. Hey, and just so you know, it's all public record, and why someone else didn't do this, I have no idea. You just go to ChatGTP and type in who was the captain of the ship during TIC TAC, or who was a TAO of the ship during TIC TAC, or who was AAWC, and it'll tell you. In fact, I posted verbatim. I didn't change anything. What Chat did. Now, ChatGTP, can make mistakes, of course, so you got to be careful. So I put it out there, and I put it out there so folks like yourself can track it down. I'm tired of getting all the calls myself.
No, I appreciate it. Because when I saw it, I was like, there's some names obviously on this list that I'd not heard of. So if I can mention a couple of names and you can tell me what you think they might have known at the time or even to this day about what happened back in 2004. And I'm going to start off with a name here of Captain Carl E. Smith. If you could tell me about him and what he might have known.
His first name I don't recall. You got to remember, this has been, 25 years ago for me, but his last name was Smith, Captain Smith at the time. And he's the one, he came down to combat. We call it combat. It's called Combat Information Center, or we just call it CIC or combat for short. He comes down to combat, and we're getting ready to do the air defense exercise that had been months in the planning. But I've been tracking these weird objects for 4 days before that. And so I was more and more and more becoming more concerned about safety of flight, because I didn't want these objects, because we're operating in Whiskey 291, which is a warning area. It's not a restricted military airspace. It's warning. If someone comes in it, we warn them, hey, we're doing exercises. You might want to leave. It's not exactly safe here. I can't prevent them, but we warn them, right? And they were going to be they were flying right over the top of the strike group. So Captain Smith comes down to combat. He said, hey, sir, we've been tracking these. Your senior chief here has absolutely zero idea what they are. I've looked at everything we have. Written documentation, been on the radios, been through emails, and no one seems to know what these things are. I very strongly recommend we intercept one. So Commander Fravor, Fast Eagle 1 launches. We suspend the exercise at the time. We take control, shift to real world, and we drive him to the closest object about 30 miles north of us. And that's when he got in the dogfight with it. It dropped out of the sky. He chased it and got in the dogfight, and it went to his cap station.
You'd seen that Tic Tac on radar. That's why you knew to vector him in on it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I had seen these things for 4 days through binoculars off the bridge of the ship, because every time I would run up to the bridge and look at them, watch them go by. Now, bridge watchstanders claim that they saw them do weird things, but I never did. For me, it was just a boring white light going about 100 miles an hour, real slowly, which was really strange considering what these things can do. Why in the hell would it be going 100 that slow? I mean, for it to go slow was odd, isn't that?
I mean, that's really slow for an aircraft, right?
Well, it's real slow for a UAP.
Yeah.
Considering they can go Mach 25.
So yeah, so how did Captain Smith come into this after Fravor's encounter?
That night, a helicopter landed aboard the Princeton, and I wasn't aware of it because, you know, we got helo ops going all day and all night. You got to sleep sometime, right? I was informed later. I went up to combat in the morning. I was going to write an after action report. So I went on the computer to get the data I needed to do it, and it wasn't there. So I called down to Computer Central and I say, hey, can you please, you know, what's going on? I don't have the data I want. I need to write my message so I can get the captain to release it. And he said, hold on, senior, I'll be right up. I got something to tell you. I said, okay, I'm right here. So he comes up, he says, you're not going to believe this, but some people came on board the ship last night and took all of our data. Not only that, they had me erase all the blank tapes. Now, you just asked why Captain Smith hasn't, that's a good question. And that's kind of why I'm calling people out, because I thought Congress had lifted NDAs. I've heard, when the ship got back to San Diego, I transferred to go to work for the Admiral. So I never signed an NDA, ever. Never once in my life, as far as I know, unless it was for my work. And even then, I don't remember as a civilian. So at this point, how come the officers don't come out? Well, what's stopping them now? Are they happy to let me take it for the team here and they can just go golf and they don't ever have to worry about it anymore? I'll let Senior Chief Day handle it. So, and I'm not including the pilots. Pilots are heroes, okay? Now, I don't like Fravor personally, but that has nothing to do with this. That man is a hero. I want to make that extremely clear. If not for him, we wouldn't know about this. He has my respect for that. On a personal note, I don't like him at all, just so you know. And the other pilots, I very strongly support what they did. You know, Bravo Zulu, heroes in my book, and the whole 9 yards. But the shipboard officers is a different story. Have you heard of any coming out?
I mean, obviously we've got Gary and Jason, but
they were enlisted like I was. So that's why I said, you know, this information is publicly available anyway, so I'm putting it out there. Now, if it hadn't been publicly available, I would have never done it because I promised I wouldn't. Yeah, but it's available, so why wouldn't I? And plus, I'm pissed. I mean, I lost a career out of this. I could have a beach house in Hawaii right now. Instead, I lost all my houses, ended up in the wilderness, broke. It really went badly for me. Some of it was my own damn fault for being so stubborn and holding myself to too high of a standard, I think. Especially when I look around now and I see where integrity and honesty don't seem to matter for nothing. And I think I know I think you know who I'm talking about.
So let's jump on to this next gentleman here, Lieutenant Commander Brian Powers, anti-air warfare coordinator aboard the USS Princeton, responsible for managing the ship's air defense operations. Surely he would have been involved that day.
Well, and also you got to remember, we had a new crop of people coming on board the ship during that time. People just arriving and people leaving, like myself. We were in the middle of a transition. So some of the names you're going to read, I don't remember as well. I didn't have a long history with them. Captain Smith, I did, including Turner, which you're going to read next. He had just pretty much gotten on board, so I didn't really work very long with him either. So, but your question is valid. Where are they? Especially since Congress has, as far as I know, lifted the NDA. Unless they put it back in effect, and I missed it somewhere. Did they? I don't know.
Well, I know that any of these people would be welcome to speak in front of Congress or privately.
And Vinny, all anyone has to do is come to my house, call me up, and say, Kevin, trust us. You are being kept in the dark because we're trying to keep everyone safe. And there's things that you don't know, and you don't know for a reason. I would accept that. Okay? But I don't even have that courtesy. After losing everything, except for my life. One thing I had left, which I lost almost 3 times that I know of. I've been pretty lucky, Vinny. I've been damn lucky. On the better side, I started volunteering at the golf course, and I met an older gentleman. He had PTSD like I do, and his was because he was in World War II in Pearl Harbor on a submarine when the Japanese uh, attacked, and his sub was out to sea, but he came back into port and had to do rescue and assistance. So he got to see with his own eyes old places and friends and stuff. And so I used to come over to the house here all the time and help him out. And I didn't know it, but he didn't have long to live, and he had told his family, "Thank you, Bob, to give me a chance to buy the house." And I did. Just I had to the penny enough money. I bought my old house for 70,000, and 2 years later to the day, I sold it for 174,000. And I'm not lying. They wanted 100,000 down, so I had just enough to close. Like it was a freaking miracle. I call it a miracle. So now I happen to live in one of the best houses in the valley. Literally, I got it for a song, and it's tripled in value since I bought it. And I don't care if it quadruples in value. I'm not selling it. This is my retirement home. It means nothing to me. In fact, I want to give it to my nieces. I don't have kids. I want it to stay in the family. Well, my family's been in this valley for 100 years. I mentioned the mining claim. My family got here in 1792. They're in a Cook Cemetery on Sandusky Island, and they were pioneers out west. And in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they came into the valley and they became gold miners. And we still have an active mining claim. So I was bound and determined I could figure it out. And I went back there and I did. I figured out the geology and everything and wrote a report. I got it here somewhere. I'll email it to you so you have it. And so, I mean, what a story. And so what happened was this is another cool part about it with SpaceX. Elon Musk came out and said, we're going to do a journey around the dark side of the moon and come home, and we're taking 8 civilians with us. Go ahead and apply, but you have to tell us why. So I did. I applied, and I gave them my mining report and told them who I was. Turns out they already knew who I was. And I said, this is why I want to go. And 4 days later, I was standing out here in the yard mowing the grass, and a big ass white NASA jet went flying low and slow right over the top of the wilderness. And it came back and did another pass, and then it flew all the way. And I can show you the radar track, and it showed east, west, north, south, all over the state, all and up and down the coast from North Washington to Northern California. Did circles around my mining claim. Now, let me ask you: is that a coincidence? I don't think so, because in my application, I had told Elon, I said, the reason why I'm telling you about this is because your boring equipment. Well, it's true we can never open mine this stuff. It's in the wilderness. But if you were to repurpose your boring equipment, you could mine it from under the ground, sir, and not even touch the roads and wilderness above it. And 4 days later, I saw the NASA jet. And the really beautiful thing of this story is during that flight, it was either that flight or the second one they did. You're not going to believe this part. They discovered previously unknown hydrothermal vents directly off the coast of Seattle. And that means one thing: tsunami. Because we have something here called the Cascadia earthquake event. Every 300 years, we get a big one. And it's been 330 years since it happened. It could happen right this second. We're overdue. And the one before the one 300 years ago was 300 years before that, and then 300, as far as they can tell, every 300 years. Because what's happening is in this case, Pacific spreading arcs are continuing to spread. Right, it's moving the sea plate towards the continental plates. Well, normally those things subduct because they're so heavy; they're loaded full of minerals because they get laid down by hydrothermal vents. But in this case, it got stuck on top of the continental plate, and it's called an ophiolite. And I was able to figure all this out, right? It's called an ophiolite, and that's why there's so much gold and minerals and stuff here. And called the Josephine ophiolite. It extends from northern Washington all the way down to northern California. And there's literally enough mineral wealth below my feet right here to probably pay off our national debt 10 times over. There's that much wealth down here. Because you got to remember what this ground is. It's ground laid down by hydrothermal vents. And the way those work, imagine the spreading arcs, right? You got all these hydrothermal vents. Well, they lay it in minerals. They call them, the geologist calls it the Earth's original mineral sorters. So they'll lay down a layer of iron, then nickel, then zirconium, then everything probably on the periodic table is layered down right in neat little layers. So all they have to do is drive right down the layer and pluck out the good stuff. Is all of this a coincidence? This whole story I just told you?
I mean, you can definitely see where the links could be.
Especially if I've somehow discovered a new fundamental law of nature, and maybe help to prevent a hell of a lot of people from dying in the next tsunami, because it's coming. Chief Seattle was right. You know, the town of Seattle was named after Native American by the name of Chief Seattle, right? And they always refused to live down there because they already knew that tsunamis come. They had a name for it, so they avoided that area. Turns out he was right, but we have a huge city in the way now, and hopefully there's been warning now where there hopefully powers that be are aware of it first of all and doing something about it, because if it happens unawares, there's nowhere to run. The wave's going to be too high, and all of a sudden too. No warning. Yep, no warning. Just boom, there it comes. The whole damn story seems like a freaking miracle.
Yeah, it does.
Now, you talk about intention, right? I've done a lot of research, and I've read a lot. I'm not a physicist, but you don't have to be a physicist to understand physics, okay? Turns out the same is true with math. So every day I spend time doing research, right? Intention. This non-human intelligence, whatever it is, right? It knows our intentions before we do. Now, is it just possible that they knew that was my last time on a ship, and they knew that if I saw it, that would end up doing the right things?
Everything's possible, isn't it? Yeah.
For me to even utter those words makes me think I'm freaking crazy, because it sounds crazy. I know, believe me, I know, but I don't know how else to digest it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that's your way of processing it.
Other than the fact that it's all true. Every dang bit of it. I've been accused of embellishing, but show me where. I've been accused of trying to profit from this. Well, show me where. If I have anything at all, it's an land equity. I don't have any money in the bank. I didn't try to sell my book. I've never taken a penny by going on the road. People pay for my way there. That's it. I never accept gratuity. I never accept payment. I've always been against it, because whatever this thing is trusted me, because they knew I had integrity, apparently.
No, yeah, you have your own path and you've been following it. I wondered if we could just jump into some questions I've got here. I'd have to say, I told the community that I was speaking with you. I got so many questions, so many messages of support. People were like, I don't have a question for Kevin. Just please pass on our support. And that was from so many people. It was incredible. So yeah. But I know so many people are so interested in finding out a little bit more about the actual objects that you were seen on radar. And this question here is from Zane Michael. And he says, he's trying to work out an origin point of where these things come from. Was there any kind of vectors or anything you became aware of, or were these things coming from above the 80,000 feet, or what was the origin?
Just so you understand my role on board the Princeton, I was a tactical air defense guy. So my main concern was 1,000 feet and below. That's normally where I kept my focus. Now, ballistic missile defense looks way up in space. They, because they're looking for missiles coming down from the atmosphere, from outer space, right? If you will, Earth orbit. So they picked them up before I did on ballistic missile on the watch standards, right? But it's hard to say exactly who, because it may have happened simultaneously. I don't know. It doesn't probably even matter. Anyway, they descended from space, and the number 80,000 is out there already. So I'll stick to that number, because I gotta be careful. Everything I want. This was 20 years ago, so everything I knew was probably OBE anyway. It's no longer even classified, maybe. But anyway, they came out of low Earth orbit. They initially set station. They were coming down in groups of 5 to 10 at a time. And over the 10-day course of time, if you counted up all the total number of objects in all the groups together, it was about 100 objects. And they descended in groups of 5 to 10 at a time from 80,000 feet, went down to between 20,000 and 28,000 feet. About, I think it was probably 5 miles off the east coast of Catalina Island or so, and just kind of sat there in the group, right? And then one by one of them would depart the group all by itself, fly right over the top of our strike group. And the weird thing is, Vinny, every 100 of these objects all disappeared in the exact same spot in the sky.
Wow.
And that spot in the sky was about 60 miles north of Guadalupe Island off the coast of Mexico. And Tom DeLong and Lou Elizondo came at the house here to interview me, and I got to this point in the story, and I remember Lou looking at Tom and said, "We're going there." And so they did. They went out to Guadalupe Island, which is, anyone listening, don't just go, because you got to get State Department approval, because they're concerned about drug runners, okay? You don't want to get caught up in that crap. Okay, so they went out there and they interviewed the fishermen and stuff, and the fishermen said, "Well, gosh darn, it's about time someone asked about these. We've been watching these things forever." Apparently, the objects reach that spot in the sky and they drop straight down and go into the ocean. No disturbance, just right into the ocean. They're gone. So they make this transit. They go out of the orbit, Catalina Island, track south across Whiskey 291, disappear into the ocean off the coast of Mexico. So the question is why? So I've figured that out too. Well, I at least have a working theory. Do we have time?
Yeah, absolutely.
But I started thinking about this. Okay, let's say intention is a fifth fundamental force, previously unknown. And let's accept that there is such a thing as non-human intelligences. I think that their prime directive, if you will, is to spread life in the cosmos. It makes sense to me, to spread intelligent life in the cosmos, right? Well, our DNA are made from phosphates and sugars, prebiotics sugars. And here I go back to hydrothermal vents. Okay, hydrothermal vents keeps coming up again and again and again and again. Okay, and this is another time. The purest source of phosphates on planet Earth is hydrothermal vents. Ditto for prebiotics. So what I think these objects are doing is they're going down to these mining claims that they have on Earth, and that's what I consider them. They're mining claims. They go down there and they grab phosphate and they grab the prebiotics they want. They create these little seeds, if you will. They take them out to potentially hospitable planets out in the cosmos, and they just leave it there, hoping that in a billion years' time, a single photon might hit it just right against an inclined crystal plane, and bam, it'll form DNA, the basis for life.
Wow, that's a very interesting theory.
I think that's how we got here. Same idea, same process. Now, could I be full of shit? Of course. But it somehow sounds right to me. But, so do a lot of things that end up being wrong. I accept that.
That's fair enough. And that's a good way of looking at it. This is a theory of yours and it can't be disproved or proved, but hey, everyone has their way of looking at things. Or it may be, and it will be potentially one day.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head. I think one of the reasons why the government came out I think they've finally thrown in the towel with the realization that they are not in control of the agenda with this. NHI is. In other words, they can't control disclosure or revelation anymore. It turns out NHI has its own damn playbook, and they're coming anyway. So the reason why I've been allowed to pretty much remain in peace, they could have killed me a long time ago. They had the opportunity out in the wilderness. That's a different story, and it really happened. Why they didn't, I don't know. But I think they've decided to keep me around because I'm actually helping, if you will, get humanity ready for what's about to happen. Now we have all these huge mega structures all over the planet, pyramids. We have no idea really how they were built. Obviously, something happened because that civilization isn't here, right? Well, I personally think that disclosure was attempted before, right? But there again, it didn't go well because someone tried to capitalize on it. Someone tried to enrich themselves from it. That's why I've been so against trying to enrich myself from this. I was smarter than that, if you will, although it hurt greatly, right? I knew I was doing the right thing. But whoever in past, again, we can't damn them. We weren't wearing their shoes, okay? This is a different time in history. And I could be wrong, but I think disclosure has been attempted on planet Earth before, and it didn't go well. And it's about to happen again. Just like the Cascadia happens every 300 years, the same is probably true with the disclosure effort, maybe every 2,000 years. Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably lines at 2,000 years. What happened 2,000 years ago, right? Again, I could be wrong. So I think the government's figured all this out now, not just U.S. government, but collectively all the world governments. And I think they're kind of counting on folks like you and I and everyone listening to do the dirty work for them. And that's why I'm not the only reason why I cuss and scream at DOD and the Navy is they could have done all that stuff and protected all of this, but they sure as hell could have treated the people involved a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I had my rights violated, if you will.
Mm.
I lost everything and no one seemed to care. We're very callous, you know. Why couldn't you have done both? You can't walk and chew gum at the same damn time? Come on. After all I did for this country, I wear a meritorious service medal. I got a combat action ribbon. 8 different deployments during times of war. And I could go on and on and on and on. And they treated me this way? What about everyone else that lost everything and no one cared? That's why I decided to speak out. Not for me, I'm already kind of fucked, but others, maybe not yet, you know? That's why any investigator that's listening to this, don't give up. You're on the right side of history. You are on the right side of history. Our job now is to make sure this goes well so humanity doesn't end up killing itself again. Again. And it will happen. For example, if you name the country, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but country XYZ gets this technology before country ABC, and they try to dominate the planet with it, guess what's going to happen? We're going to go the way of the Great Pyramids. There'll be smoking craters left, that's it. Only this time we got nukes. See how important this is?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Scary thought.
Well, it's also an opportunity to get her done right this time.
Let's have a look here. Sorry, there's so many questions. Here's a question from KK Nichols. What, if anything, did Kevin learn about an object in the water? Now, there's been these reports of the submarine picking up sonar potentially of something. Was there anything you became aware of?
I'm actually really happy that was answered or was asked. Commander Fravor was getting ready to go back to the aircraft carrier, RTB for fuel, right? And meanwhile, the other aircraft were just launching, right? He had done his intercept. He was going back. And all of a sudden gets on the radio and says, Charlie, we may have, Charlie was our call sign. Charlie, we may have a downed aircraft marking on top. So we were thinking, oh shit, here we go. Because immediately we're transitioning to search and rescue. We're going to go search, right? And help rescue and assistance, right? And he goes vectoring down on it, and he comes right back on the radio and says, disregard marine life. So, okay, thank God. And he takes off. Now, the weird thing is, Vinny, I got to tell you, at the time this was happening, people have often asked me, didn't you think these things were hostile? Weren't you concerned about the U.S. being vulnerable to these things and all that, safety? And I said, no, I wasn't. As a matter of fact, they didn't exhibit any type of hostilities in no way, shape, or form. They weren't in any type of restricted airspace, in no way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, and this is going to sound really like I'm on drugs, which I'm not, but I just had this weird feeling, and I think this feeling is shared by others, of benevolence. I had an overpowering feeling of love when these things were around. And this was in November, and I used to like to watch the whales. The gray whales would migrate from Catalina Island down to Guadalupe Island. That was every November they do that, right, on their migration, getting down to the warm waters. And because they want to eat, right? And so immediately my abductive logic is saying, well, they're here to say hi to the whales. Apparently, one came up to the surface to say hi and then took off. Was it really a whale, though? Now I don't know. I'm pretty darn certain it wasn't one of our submarines. I mean, you got to remember, Commander Fravor was an extremely experienced pilot. I'm pretty darn sure he can recognize a surface submarine from sea life, right? Or even a submarine that's tethered. It's got the flotation on the surface with the flotate. They're actually anchored, if you will, right? He knows what those look like too. Okay, you ain't gonna trick him. So no, it wasn't one of our submarines. It wasn't a Russian submarine. It wasn't a Chinese submarine. It was either sea life or it was an unknown underwater object. And I guess technically it was an unknown submerged object because we don't know what it was. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Let's see if we've got another one here before time. Before you answer this, I want to check if this even makes sense. But someone's asking, did the exercise have support from the National Technical Means? Does that ring any bells?
Ask that one more time.
Did the training exercise, have support from the National Technical Means assets?
Most likely, although it wasn't my department because I wasn't on board the ship. We have people that are technicians, and all the ships had received upgrades to the systems. One of the reasons why we went to sea is to double, triple check all the upgrades and all the systems. So the answer is likely yes, but I don't know. We did have outside support. What the three-letter acronyms were, I don't know. I'm familiar with the ones in San Diego, but if it was something on a national level, maybe I wasn't aware of it. It could have been something on the intel side, and I had no need to know it anyway. So.
No, I appreciate that. Well, listen, Kevin, before I let you go, I just wanted to give you just a moment if you want to give a message to anybody out there in particular, anybody that maybe has been involved in this incident who is considering stepping forward or anything like that. What would you say to them?
If you are considering stepping forward, I highly recommend don't go it alone. Reach out to there's a very strong community of support, and reach out to myself or one of the other people that you've heard of or know about. And I think that you will be surprised at the embrace that you'll get back, because that's exactly what people like myself want. We want others to support what we're saying, because this is a safety of flight risk. I swear to God, Vinny, it's just a matter of time before one of these objects, on purpose or not, runs into a commercial airliner. It's going to happen.
It's a serious concern.
Well, hopefully it's less of a concern now than it was 20 years ago. At this point, by others coming out, I mean, that's just one example. Who knows what you might manifest out of this? Remember, I was talking about intention and micro intentions manifested into macro intentions. Well, that requires micro intentions, right? So the more people we got on that side of the equation intending something, the more chances we have on the other side of the equation of it actually happening. So heck yeah, come out, contact me, contact Vinny, contact some of the other names in the community, and you will be invaded. I spend time every day doing exactly that. People come out of the woodwork all the time, and that's one of my rules. I volunteer my time out of love.
Yeah, it's very much appreciated, Kevin. And it's always an absolute pleasure to speak to you, my friend. Like I said earlier, you've got so much support here in the community. There's such an outpour of love for you, and people just wishing you nothing but the best. And for me personally, I want to give you a huge thank you as well for always, being there to talk to and coming on. Yeah. And coming on the show. You're welcome anytime, my friend. So please stay in touch. But for now, I just want to say thank you. And yeah, we'll speak to you soon.